Imagine for a moment that suddenly the entire world was plunged into a darkness so deep that not even the strongest lamps, neither the sun nor the moon, could illuminate. Imagine opening the window of your house and seeing just absolute darkness, a silence broken only by distant screams and inexplicable sounds. This is not the scene of a horror film, but rather the content of one of the most mysterious and frightening prophecies in history, the 3 nights of darkness. And the most impressive thing is that this revelation was attributed to none other than Padre Pio, one of the most well-known and venerated saints in the Catholic Church. Padre Pio was not just any man. He lived between 1887 and 1968 and became famous for carrying within his body the marks of Christ's crucifixion, known as stigmata. People from all over the world traveled to the small town of San Giovanni Rotondo, Italy, just to see him, ask for advice, and even experience miracles. Many claimed he had supernatural gifts. He could be in 2 places at once. At the same time, he read the thoughts of those who approached him, and above all, he left messages that seem to speak not only to their time, but also to our future. Among these messages, one in particular continues to intrigue believers and scholars: the prophecy of the 3 nights of darkness. It speaks of a period in which humanity would be drastically tested, a moment of purification and also of terror. And it's about this prophecy, about what Padre Pio revealed and how it connects with the signs of our days, which we will discuss in this video. So I'm going to ask you now, if you believe we need to talk more about faith, about the mysteries of God, and about messages that can transform our way of seeing life, subscribe to the channel now, activate the bell notifications, and share this video. What you hear here may surprise you and even change the way you see the world. When we talk about saints, many people imagine distant people, figures who lived centuries ago and who seem almost inaccessible. But Padre Pio is different. He lived in the 20th century, in the same period in which the world was facing wars, political changes, and gigantic social transformations. Born in 1887, in a small village in southern Italy called Pietrelcina, Francesco Forgione, his given name, was an ordinary young man from a simple family. But since childhood, there were already signs that his life would be marked by extraordinary. It is said that when he was still young, he had visions of angels and also of spirits who came to test him. Few, this fragile boy with delicate health grew and felt a very special calling. He entered to the Capuchin order and received the name Pius in honor of Saint Pius I. It was at this time that his spiritual journey began to gain momentum, and mystical experiences became a constant part of your life. But what really caught the world's attention were the stigmata, open wounds on his hands, feet, and chest. Similar to the marks of Jesus' crucifixion. These wounds, which remained on his body for more than 50 years, attracted thousands of people who traveled to San Giovanni Rotondo to see it. And here comes one of the first major hooks in its history. How could someone carry such signs on their body, mysterious, and continue living with such faith and dedication? Padre Pio not only endured physical pain, but also spent long hours hearing confessions, counseling people, and even performing unexplained cures. Many claimed he could reveal secrets kept in the hearts of those who approached, as if they had the ability to see beyond the words. Others reported that he appeared in distant places, even though he had never left his cell. It was the gift of bilocation, something that science has never been able to explain. Every detail of Padre Pio's life draws attention because it leads us to an inevitable question. Would it be possible that a simple man living in a convent had received such extraordinary gifts directly from God? That's why his life is so studied and remembered to this day. But the most impressive thing isn't just the miracles or unexplained phenomena. What really marked Padre Pio's life were his messages, advice, and prophecies, words that continue to echo as if they were destined for our time. And among these messages, one stands out and to this day awakens fear, curiosity, and deep reflections. Prophecy of the 3 Nights of Darkness. But before delving into this mystery, it's important to understand how its visions and revelations began to gain momentum, and as he became one of the most influential and respected of the Catholic faith. When we think of Padre Pio, we immediately remember the miracles, the long lines of faithful who sought confess to him, and the mysterious wounds that marked his life. But there is one aspect that draws so much pay attention to all this: his prophecies. Padre Pio left messages that have stood the test of time and continue being studied to this day because they seem to speak not only to the past, but directly to the present and even to the future. These revelations did not come all at once, but were recorded in letters, testimonies of people close, and even in reports from those who lived with him daily. Padre Pio often issued warnings about events that were yet to come. He spoke of wars, of spiritual crises, of moments when humanity would turn away from God and suffer the consequences of this distancing. For some, these messages were frightening. For others, they were a call to conversion and hope. One of the best-known examples is when he allegedly warned about great conflicts that would come in the future. Padre Pio lived during both world wars, and many believe his words referred not only to these periods, but also to events still further ahead. He described humanity as plunged into moral darkness in times of suffering, but always emphasized that faith would be the only light capable of guiding people in these moments. Within this set of messages is the famous prophecy of the 3 Nights of Darkness. When mentioning it, Padre Pio didn't just want to instill fear. He emphasized that this period would also be an opportunity to purification, a way for humanity to find hope amidst chaos. According to reports, he said that only those who remained steadfast in prayer and trust in God would get through this time in security. Padre Pio's prophecies should not be seen as fatalistic predictions, but as signs pointing to spiritual choices. They serve as a reminder that in the midst of the greatest difficulties, faith can become the strength that sustains and illuminates. That is why, to this day, believers and scholars continue to revisit his words, attempt to understand whether these messages have already been fulfilled, whether they are yet to come, or whether, in fact, they are already happening before our eyes. Among all the messages attributed to Padre Pio, none has as much impact as the prophecy of the 3 Nights of Darkness. This is, without a doubt, the most mysterious point of your spiritual life, a warning that moves with people's imagination and even their deepest fears. The description is simple, but at the same time frightening time. A period of 3 whole days in which the world would be covered in total darkness, where nothing, not the sun, nor the moon, nor the stars, could shine. Reports claim that Padre Pio spoke of this time as a great trial for humanity, a moment of purification in which many would be put to the test. The most disturbing detail is that was just a lack of light. According to him, during these nights, supernatural phenomena and events, terrible things would manifest. Voices, screams, and unexplained sounds would be heard outside the houses, bringing terror to those who were not spiritually prepared. The strongest warning was clear: no one should leave their homes during this period. The only protection would be in remain collected, in prayer and with blessed candles, because only they would be able to illuminate the darkness. Not even electricity would work, since the darkness would be total and absolute, something beyond human understanding. What's striking is that this type of prophecy didn't just originate with Padre Pio. Other Catholic mystics also talked about something similar, which further reinforces the mystery surrounding this topic. But when the words come from someone who lived through inexplicable phenomena and left such strong marks of holiness, the weight is even bigger. The Three Nights of Darkness isn't just a scary story meant to impress. It carries within it a profound message: the need for conversion, spiritual preparation, and total trust in God. Padre Pio did not describe this time only as a punishment, but also as a chance for renewal, an opportunity for those who sought faith to survive and emerge stronger. This prophecy lives on because it touches on something universal: the fear of the unknown and the hope that even in the darkest night there is a light that never goes out. The question remains, will this warning, will it still be fulfilled? Or are we already experiencing the signs he tried to show us? If the prophecy of the Three Nights of Darkness seems frightening, what really catches the eye are the advice that accompanies this announcement. Padre Pio not only spoke of a time of darkness and fear, he also left instructions on how the faithful should prepare to face this period. This is an essential detail. The prophecy is not only a warning message, but also a survival guide, spiritual. According to reports, Padre Pio said that during those nights, only blessed candles would be able to illuminate. There would be no point in turning on lamps, flashlights, or any other source of energy. Only candlelight consecrated would remain firm in the midst of total darkness. This indication became a symbol of faith and vigilance, remembering that only what comes from God can resist chaos. Another important warning was to stay indoors. Padre Pio reinforced that during darkness it would be dangerous to go out, no matter how strong the curiosity or desperation. Outside, according to the testimonies, there would be terrifying sounds, voices calling out names, and even frightening visions. The enemy, he said, would use every possible means to try to deceive, confuse, and instill fear. Therefore, the recommendation was clear: resist the temptation to open doors or windows and remain steadfast in prayer. Furthermore, there was guidance to maintain a spirit of trust. It was not enough to simply hide or have candles. Padre Pio taught that prayer would be the true weapon to get through the ordeal. Praying the rosary, remaining silent before God, and asking for mercy would be the keys to enduring those days. The most striking thing is to realize that this advice doesn't just apply to a possible future prophecy. It also fits into our daily lives. How often do we find ourselves in our own nights of darkness, moments of pain, uncertainty, or despair? In these times, Padre Pio's words remain relevant. Remain firm. Keep your faith burning like a candle that never goes out, and don't let fear make you open up space for what can hurt us. This warning to prepare is more than a practical rule for a time of mystery. It is a spiritual lesson on how to face the darkness of the world and the darkness of the soul. A message that resonates to this day, challenging each of us to reflect. Are we prepared to resist when darkness comes? When we talk about the prophecy of the Three Nights of Darkness, we are not just dealing with rumors or stories invented over time. There are records and testimonies attributed directly to Padre Pio that sustain this mystery. In some letters and writings that circulate to this day, detailed descriptions appear about this period of darkness, always accompanied by recommendations of prayer, silence, and trust in God. These documents have become the subject of study and debate among both believers and scholars of church. One of the best-known accounts is that of a letter sent to his spiritual superiors, where Padre Pio described scenes of great suffering for humanity. He mentioned that a time would come when many would cry, not only for the material losses, but for the lack of faith that would take over the world. In these words, there are clear signs that he saw far beyond his time, pointing to events that could reach future generations. There are also testimonies from people close to him who claim to have heard Padre Pio comment on this warning. Faithful who lived with him in San Giovanni Rotondo report that at times the friar would leave escape phrases about days of darkness, advising them to never lose faith, even when everything seemed lost. Although these accounts are not officially recognized by the Church as documents doctrinal, They remain as a strong echo, capable of crossing decades and continuing to awaken attention. It is interesting to note that in some of these testimonies there is a direct connection with devotional practices that already were encouraged by him: to always keep the rosary in hand, to pray daily and never to stray from the sacraments. That is, his words came not just as frightening warnings, but as a constant spiritual preparation. These testimonies gained even more strength because Padre Pio had already demonstrated that he possessed gifts extraordinary, like predicting events and reading people's souls. So when he talked about something so impactful as the 3 nights of darkness, it was natural that many believed and took his words to serious. The most intriguing point is that these writings remain available to anyone who wishes to study them, and the more as time passes, they seem to dialogue with the signs of our current world. Wars, crises, and religious divisions bring to mind the inevitable question: has what Padre Pio described already begun to happen in some way, form? When people first heard of the 3 nights of darkness prophecy attributed to Father Pius, the reaction was a mix of fear and hope. It's not hard to imagine the impact such a message would have, kind you would have in any community. On the one hand, the dread at the thought of 3 full days of darkness, accompanied by inexplicable phenomena. On the other, the certainty that amidst the chaos, there would still be a promise of salvation for those who kept the faith. The fear came from the imagination that this prophecy awakened. Think of simple families, hearing that for 3 nights they would hear voices calling their names, frightening sounds outside the houses, and events that defied explanation. For many, it was like anticipating the end of the world. And indeed, the very Padre Pio's silence at certain moments reinforced this feeling of mystery, as if there were details that could not be fully revealed. But at the same time, this message brought profound hope. Padre Pio never spoke only of destruction. He reinforced that even in the deepest darkness, God's presence would be the light that would erase. For the faithful, this prophecy was not only a warning, but also a call to conversion and confidence. The fear of darkness was balanced by the promise that those who remained steadfast in the prayer would be protected. This climate divided opinions. While some preferred to cling to the scary part, others saw it prophesy a great invitation to change one's life. And it is precisely in this duality that the strength of this message. Fear keeps us focused and makes us reflect on the fragility of existence. Hope, in turn, strengthens faith and gives courage to overcome trials. That is why, to this day, the prophecy of the 3 nights of darkness remains so present in the religious imagination. It speaks not only of catastrophe, but also of the victory of light over darkness. It is a reminder that in any time of crisis, fear may even knock on the door, but it is hope that must remain within us. Although the 3 dark nights prophecy is closely associated with Padre Pio, it is not unique to him. Throughout the history of the Church, other mystics and saints have also spoken of periods of darkness that would come to purify humanity. This connection further strengthens the mystery because it shows that different voices in different times pointed to the same spiritual reality. A striking example is Saint Faustina Kowalska, known as the Apostle of Divine Mercy. In her spiritual diary, she described visions of times when humanity would face great suffering and spoke of the urgent need for prayer and repentance. Although he did not mention exactly 3 nights, his words also reinforced the idea of a dark period in which only trust in God could sustain people. Another case is that of Blessed Anna Maria Taigi, a 19th century Italian mystic. She reported receiving from God revealed that there would be a time of darkness over the world, during which only blessed candles could illuminate. This description is almost identical to that attributed to Padre Pio, which generates even more curiosity and connection between the testimonies. We also find references in visions of other saints and blesseds who spoke of spiritual punishments. periods of silence and darkness as signs of purification. For many believers, this repetition at different times is an indication that such messages cannot be ignored, but seen as warnings that go through the centuries. These connections show that prophecy should not be treated as something isolated or a figment of one person's imagination, single person. Rather, it seems to be part of a larger set of messages that God would have allowed to reach humanity through various messengers. Each one, in their own way, reinforced the same truth. Faith would be the only light capable of guiding during times of darkness. Thus, when Padre Pio spoke of the 3 nights of darkness, his words echoed not only his own experience, but also a spiritual choir made up of other Catholic prophets. This gives even more weight to the message, because it makes us think. If so many holy men and women spoke about something similar, wouldn't it be, is this a sign that we need to pay attention? When we talk about Padre Pio's prophecies, especially the 3 nights of darkness, a question arises. Inevitable. What was the Church's position in the face of all this? The answer is not so simple, because the Church Catholics always treat private revelations with great caution. Unlike the truths of faith already confirmed in gospel and tradition, prophecies and visions of saints or mystics are not binding on the faithful believe. In the case of Padre Pio, the Church officially recognized his sanctity, his miracles, and the authenticity of his stigmas he carried for over 50 years. However, as for the prophecies, including that of the 3 dark nights, there is no official document confirming them as mandatory revelation. This is not means that they are false, but that they should be seen as spiritual warnings, always interpreted with prudence and discernment. It's important to remember that throughout history, the Church has dealt with numerous private revelations. Some were confirmed, as in Fatima and Lourdes, where apparitions and messages were officially recognized after long studies. Others, however, never received formal approval, but still continue to be source of devotion and reflection for millions of faithful. The prophecy attributed to Padre Pio fits into this second group. Catholic scholars often assert that the essential thing is not whether the event will happen in a literal, but in understanding the spiritual message it carries. In the case of the 3 nights of darkness, the Church emphasizes that the main lesson is the call to conversion, prayer, and spiritual preparation. Thus, even without official confirmation, the message remains valid as an inspiration of faith. This cautious stance by the Church also has an important reason: to avoid sensationalism and ensure that the faith is not based on fear, but on love and hope. Padre Pio in his life never wanted to provoke panic, but to awaken conscience. Therefore, the Church invites the faithful to see its words as an encouragement, to strengthen the relationship with God, and not just as an announcement of catastrophe. In the end, what the Church teaches us is simple. It doesn't matter so much whether or not there will be 3 literal nights of darkness. The most important thing is to be prepared to face the darkness of life with faith and courage. This interpretation keeps alive the essence of what Padre Pio preached: trust in God at all times, even in the most difficult ones. When we hear the prophecy of the 3 nights of darkness attributed to Padre Pio, it is natural that many are ask yourself, does this have any relation to what we are experiencing today? After all, just look around to realize that the signs of our times seem to echo, in some way, the warnings he left. Wars, natural disasters, pandemics, social divisions, and crises of faith are becoming increasingly visible. All of this leads us to reflect on whether we are not already symbolically crossing the darkness he spoke of. Padre Pio said that humanity would experience periods of great suffering because of its distance from God. When we look at the current reality, we realize how evident this separation is in many areas of life. The quest for power, the hatred spread on social media, the weakening of spiritual values, all these aspects create a climate of uncertainty and fear. Many feel lost, as if the world had turned transformed into a colder and more distant place. Furthermore, environmental disasters and extreme weather events are becoming increasingly frightening with each passing year. For believers, these events are not only scientific data, but also spiritual signs that creation suffers and that something greater is about to happen. It is exactly this kind of reading that keeps the prophecy alive of the 3 nights of darkness. The idea that darkness can manifest itself not only physically, but also moral and spiritual. The most interesting thing is that when we reflect on the signs of our time, Padre Pio's message gains even more strength. It's not just about waiting for an extraordinary event to happen in the sky or on earth. It's about to realize that we are already living nights of uncertainty, moments in which faith is tested, and that the preparation of what he was talking about could be for now. Every crisis, every conflict, and every challenge we face can be seen as an opportunity to renew our trust in God. The darkness may seem to be getting thicker, but the message that echoes from Padre Pio's life is clear. Even when the world plunges into chaos, faith is the flame that must never go out. So when we look at the signs of our times, we shouldn't just feel fear. We should feel also the call to change, repentance, and hope. Because, as Padre Pio said, no darkness is capable of overcoming the light that comes from prayer and trust in God. When we think of the 3 nights of darkness, it's common for the first reaction to be fear. After all, the idea of spending 3 days immersed in absolute darkness, hearing frightening sounds, and not being able to leave the house moves with anyone's imagination. But if we look deeper, we realize that Padre Pio's message, it wasn't just about terror or destruction. There was something much deeper hidden behind those words, a call to spiritual transformation. Darkness, in this context, can be understood not only as a physical phenomenon, but also as a symbol. It represents the moments when humanity moves away from God, loses its values, and lets itself dominated by selfishness, violence, and indifference. Thus, the 3 nights become a warning that when the light of faith goes out, the world plunges into darkness. And it is precisely in these periods that the need for renewal. Padre Pio knew that talking about darkness would attract attention, but his intention was not to paralyze people by fear. On the contrary, it was to awaken them to the urgency of changing their lives. He taught that, in the midst of chaos, prayer and trust in God would be the true refuge. In other words, the hidden message is not in predicting catastrophes, but in showing that even in the worst moments, there is a way out. Another important point is that the prophecy can also be seen as a metaphor for the personal struggles that each person faces. We all go through dark nights, phases of pain, doubts, losses, or crises in which there seems to be no way out. In this sense, Padre Pio's message serves as a reminder that faith is capable of illuminate even the darkest paths. Therefore, the true essence of this prophecy is not to scare, but to inspire. It invites us to reflect on the life we are leading, to strengthen our spirituality and not wait for a great sign in the sky happen to change our attitude. The light that overcomes darkness is already within each of us. We just need to not let it turn it off. When we look at the life of Padre Pio, we realize that his legacy goes far beyond the prophecies and mystical phenomena that made him famous. He was, above all, a man who lived intensely his faith and left an example that continues to inspire millions of people around the world. His spirituality was limited to visions and miracles. She was present in every gesture of compassion, in every piece of advice given, in every prayer said alongside those who suffered. For decades, Padre Pio dedicated his life to the confessional. He spent up to 16 hours a day listening to people from all over, from peasants to important officials. Many left transformed, claiming that he had the ability to see into the soul, revealing unconfessed sins, or pointing out paths of reconciliation with God. This gift of spiritual direction may have been one of the greatest reasons for his fame in life. Another aspect of his legacy was charity. Padre Pio was always concerned with helping those in need, and he was largely responsible for the construction of Casa Sollievo della Sofferenza, a hospital that is still a reference in medical care, uniting science and spirituality. This project shows that its mission was not only in talking about faith, but in putting it into practice in a concrete way, taking care of people's bodies and souls. The miracles attributed to him, both during his lifetime and after his death, continue to reinforce popular devotion. Healing of incurable diseases, mysterious apparitions in distant places, and even testimonies of protection in times of danger are reported by countless believers. These events fuel the conviction that Padre Pio was chosen to be a special instrument of God in the world. But perhaps the greatest legacy is its central message: to pray, trust, and remain steadfast in the face of difficulties. He didn't promise a life without problems, but he showed that faith can give meaning even to greatest pains. His canonization in 2002 only confirmed what people had known for a long time. Padre Pio was indeed a holy man. So when we think about his prophecies, including the 3 nights of darkness, we must not forget that the heart of his mission has always been the same: to bring people closer to God. This is the true spiritual legacy that lives on, inspiring generations and reminding everyone that even in the darkness, there is a light that never goes out. After we delve into the life and messages of Padre Pio, it becomes impossible not to reflect on what really mean the 3 nights of darkness. More than a fear-inspiring prophecy, this warning is a profound invitation to look within ourselves. The world has always faced moments of crisis, of wars, doubts, and falling away from faith. Perhaps the great darkness is not only in heaven or on earth, but within every heart that distances itself from God. Padre Pio lived a life marked by the extraordinary, but he never stopped being simple and human. He showed that true faith is not just made of visible miracles, but of small gestures of love, of prayer, and daily trust. His legacy spans the years because it speaks directly to what we all seek: light in the midst of darkness. The 3 nights of darkness may not have happened literally, and they may never happen that way, but they remain relevant as a symbol of the struggle that each of us faces in our moments of pain, fear, and uncertainty. A symbol of hope that should never fade, even when everything seems lost. And that's exactly why we need to carry this message forward. We live in times of confusion, of doubt and crises that seem to leave us in the dark. But, as Padre Pio taught, there is always a light. And that light is born from faith, prayer, and union with God. Now I want to make you a special invitation. If this reflection touched you in any way, if the life of Father Pius and his prophecy have awakened questions, faith, or hope in your heart, subscribe to the channel now. This is very important for this message to continue reaching more people. Also, leave your like on this video, because this way you show YouTube that this content is worth spreading. And more, right here in the comments, do you believe that the prophecy of the 3 nights of darkness will still come true, fulfill? Or do you think it is already happening, symbolically, today? Your opinion can further enrich this conversation and help others reflect. Never forget, even in the darkest night, a simple flame of faith can illuminate everything. And that is the greatest lesson that Padre Pio left us.
Hear the true prophetic message.